Hey, what's going on? Jeff Ratcliffe here. The Atlanta Falcons have been one of the more potent offenses in the league over the last several seasons. And with that offensive firepower has come a lot of fantasy value. So let's take a look at the 2019 outlook for fantasy purposes for the Atlanta Falcons. And let's start with Matt Ryan, who quietly finished as the number 2 fantasy quarterback last season. Hey, Patrick Mahomes overshadowed everybody else, but let's be clear. Ryan put up some major numbers last year. 35 touchdown passes. Okay, pretty good, right? 4,900 plus passing yards for the second time in 3 seasons. It was his second place finish in those 3 seasons. So Ryan has shown some major upside. He's also, though, shown a little bit of downside in the 2 other seasons over the last 4. He was down a little bit. So it's a little bit of a roller coaster for sure. And that can sometimes be week in, week out as well during the season with Ryan. He's not always the most consistent. But here's the thing. This year, Dirk Cutter coming in, new coordinator, but the system that Cutter was running in Tampa put up some major numbers in the passing game, so that should be a plus. And then the fact that you don't have to take Matt Ryan as the number 2 quarterback off the board. He's very likely going to be the number 6 or number 7 quarterback off the board, somewhere in that range, which means you don't have to spend a premium pick to get a guy who's shown that number 2 overall upside at the position. So that is something to like about Matt Ryan. But of course, the name of the game at quarterback with anything is value. Make sure you're getting those quarterbacks at appropriate value. Let's go to his wide receivers, though. And Julio Jones, this guy is amazing. If you don't think Julio Jones is good at football, I'm sorry, but you don't know football. He's been phenomenal. One of the most efficient receivers on a per route basis at Pro Football Focus. We have this stat called yards per route run. It measures how effective these guys are per route, how efficient they are per route. And Julio Jones is elite. He is always at the top of the league. So effective there. But I know you play fantasy, so what do you care about? Touchdowns. And everybody knocks Julio Jones for touchdowns, but he had 8 last year. He scored 8 touchdowns. There was only 10 receivers in the league who had more than him. So he was just fine in that department, over 1,600 yards. He's a guy you basically could almost ink in for triple-digit catches. Julio Jones, still phenomenal. Now, he is over 30, so that is something we have to keep in mind, but there's still plenty of tread left on the tires for Julio Jones. He's still right up there. I wouldn't argue with you if you said he was the number 1 receiver. I'm not taking him there. I'm gonna take him as the number 3 receiver off the board this year. Of course, there is an up-and-comer, though, in Atlanta. Second-year man Calvin Ridley. He was shot out of a cannon to start the season last year. In the first month of the season, he had 6 receiving touchdowns. Now, faded a little bit from there, but we saw the serious upside that this kid can bring to this offense. Now, last year, he wasn't always out there in 2 wide receiver sets. The team was using Mo Sanu out there in 2 wide receiver sets, so it was bouncing back and forth between the 2. But we do think this year is a year where we see a lot more Calvin Ridley, and obviously that'll be good for fantasy purposes. Now, being on the same roster as Julio Jones is a gravitational force that just sucks in targets. So he's not going to see anywhere near Julio's volume, but Ridley's big play upside, that certainly bodes positively. So he doesn't necessarily need all of that volume to be a productive wide receiver 2 in fantasy. In terms of Sanu, I just don't think the ceiling's high enough to warrant any consideration there. We really want to be shooting for higher ceiling players. Sanu just hasn't shown that over the course of his career. At running back, Devonta Freeman's getting a little bit of buzz now. And I think there's some reasons why that certainly are viable reasons. First and foremost, Tevin Coleman's not there anymore, right? He's in San Francisco, so Freeman there, Ito Smith behind him, and the team really didn't do anything. They drafted Quadriolison, but they really didn't do anything behind him, anybody who's going to step in and threaten Freeman for carries. So that all bodes well. Age 27 season, so not super old, but my concern with Freeman is the fact that, last year he misses 14 games. He missed 2 games the year before that, so 16 combined missed games over the last 2 seasons. getting a little bit up there in age. So I don't think he's a slam dunk RB1. I'm not going to be drafting him as a top 12 option. In fact, I think he's more of a mid-range RB2. So just be careful to not overpay for Devonta Freeman this year. Ito Smith would be his handcuff, but that's about all he's going to be for Freeman this year. So keep that in mind. If Freeman does go down, though, Ito Smith will have some value. At tight end, Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper last year was the number 6 fantasy tight end in PPR scoring. I am not kidding you. It was a weird year for tight end. There's no doubt about it. And there was a big gap between really the first 3 or 4. I mean, I guess you could count Eric Ebron in there as the number 4 fantasy tight end, and then basically everybody else. And with the everybody else crowd, you were just praying for a touchdown out of your tight end. Well, he's still in the everybody else crowd, but he did have 71 catches last year. He has shown some upside in that offense in the past. So if you miss on tight end early in your drafts this year, you're looking for a later guy who gives you some upside in an offense that has some juice, Austin Hooper could be one of those guys, but of course, tight end such a fickle position from year to year that he's by no means a sure thing. Want to see where these guys land in our fantasy rankings? You can check all of those out and more over at ProFootballFocus.com.